What I'd like to do first of all is to talk to you, the audience in Arizona, and say how grateful I am for the invitation to speak with the CSPO activities. I think there are very few organizations in the world with both the courage of their convictions that CSPO has to seek evidence to guide science policy, not just in the United States but internationally. I admire it greatly, and I regret deeply that I've been unable to attend personally for family reasons. But I very much want to interact with anyone who's a participant in this meeting to discuss what we have learned, whether it's extensible to your world, and what you can inform us from your world that will help us do our job. So again, thank you to Dan Sarowitz and the others at CSPO for the opportunity to speak to you. It means a lot to us here at Cambia to have this forum. Yeah, it's basically about social equity, about the opportunity of people to solve their own problems. If you look at one of the great strengths of science, it's to articulate and answer questions, and the hope we have in society is that those questions inform solutions. The challenge is the types of questions we ask and the way we answer them determines who's in a position to solve a problem. And this, unfortunately, is not a very well-coupled structure. We have right now probably 3 billion people in the world that are making less than a couple of dollars a day. We can't imagine that their voices are very, very strong in the innovation system that motivates and incentivizes scientists. And as long as I've been in science, I've noticed that most of science is driven by a combination of the granting community. Wherever the funding is, that determines where the work is, and to some extent the internal incentives for scientists to continue in their professions. A very, very modest part of it is actual social need. Part of what I've been doing over the last 30 years has been trying to grasp the nettle of social need and use it to inform priority setting in science, to use it to actually make it possible for scientists to do much more adaptable, absorbable work that's relevant to people who currently don't have much of a voice in society. So we've taken our ideas to scale with this new initiative for open innovation. About 18 months ago, the Gates Foundation funded us largely because their funding activities were facing some of those constraints. And their lawyers would come to us and say, how can we build frameworks by which diverse public institutions and private sector players can actually have a constructive decision support tool by which they can reach a decision on a trajectory, a decision on a means of interacting with each other. How can they do that? So we set out to take our patent lens work to scale with this IOI activity to provide just that. It's in its early days right now, but the basic concept is very sound, and we're convinced it's the right one. It's to take the world's innovation information, not just patents, science and technology literature, business, regulatory, and the gray literature, combine it in what we call a cyber infrastructure, and then build and articulate ways that everyone has no choice but to use this information to create what amounts to maps in particular areas of activity. If someone's interested in water purification activity, they should know, even as a nanotechnologist, who's out there, what are they doing it, in what countries, how's it looking, where's the capital requirements. These are not big, difficult, hairy questions. They're logical questions that every business asks. Well, why shouldn't the NIH be able to ask similar questions about its funding in cancer research? Why shouldn't the Gates Foundation demand to have those answers in its malaria work or its agriculture work? This is true for both venture capital investors and governmental investors. They need to know. If we don't know, we're shooting in the dark. We expect a miracle to occur. So our intervention is a system-wide global response to this systemic failing, and that is to be able to provide utter transparency and the tools of cartography. It doesn't presume what the answers will be and what the trajectories will be any more than if I give you a map. It doesn't tell you where to go on that map, it just tells you what risks are out there. Where is there a dead end? Where you fall off a cliff? It's up to you to walk it. So this is not saying be a fellow traveler, be a Marxist with me and freedom, freedom. It's saying here's a map. This map tells you what the truth is. If you're a policymaker in science, if you're a policymaker in innovation, you can look at the map. In fact, because the map's there, you must look at the map or you will be shamed. And when you look at that map, you can make a more informed, less risky decision about where you put your money, what scientific outcomes can you skew towards, who are the other players, do you like the way that looks or do you want to wrap it up in a different tool, not a patent license? So our point of intervention that I'm confident is the right one is to create global public goods of innovation information. Now, there are naysayers. There are those who say, oh, we can add value as a company. We can add value to this innovation information. Well, that's knowledge. And that knowledge, I feel, must be a common public good if we're going to create diverse innovations on that knowledge and informed by the knowledge. So that's what we're doing. So ironically, as a scientist, I haven't done a lot of pipetting in the last couple of years. In fact, actually none. But as a person confident that I'm laying out the pathways for new and different kinds of science that can impact the people I care about, we're sure we're on the right track. Though ironically, rather than surrounding myself by science, I surround myself by software engineers and information specialists. Go figure. The most powerful obstacles, again, tend to be entrenched interests from the public sector. This is so funny. When I started Cambia, I was confident that I would have a huge raging pushback from the multinationals and the private sector, and that the public sector would be absolutely allied to my cause and rally around. We started something 5 or 6 years ago, the BioForge, to work together when we launched our open source innovation in the life sciences. 2,000 people registered. After about 2 years, we shut it down because of those 2,000 people, one of us, meaning me, had actually done anything, or I should say our team at Cambia had actually done anything. The rest were just high maintenance dweebs. Ultimately, you got to do something. And the public sector is not rewarded for doing things that impact the public. They're rewarded for doing things that impact their career or their likelihood of further grants or institutional funding. So we have discovered that the public sector is the problem of public good. We are enormously inefficient. We have totally perverse incentives. We have not figured out how unimportant science is in an innovation system. It's just a part of it, and yet it should be a hugely influential part of it if we allow our humane and human values to influence that, but we don't incentivize that. The private sector, on the other hand, they have an incredible feedback mechanism called the market. If they don't produce something that people think is of value, they go out of business. That's not the case in the public sector. So I utterly love public goods sector, but I want it to be agile, lean, with aligned incentives and rewards for delivery to society, and it is not. But the best thing is it's ripe for such an intervention. It's absolutely ripe for it.